Yeah, says I'm live. Yes. Welcome everybody to Real Guitar Live. This is Real Guitar Live number 53. Wow. Today I'm on my own, but I'm going to do a great job. I'm going to answer all your guitar related questions, and then I'm going to do a drawing for those who are in my Real Guitar Success membership and they've completed the lessons for the month of November in this case. So we've got a drawing coming up. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're watching this pre-recorded, welcome too. If you ask questions, if you are here watching it pre-recorded later on after the live session, go ahead and add questions in the comments below. I do read the comments and I'll go ahead and answer your questions. But if you're here live, great to have you here. I have pre-submitted questions and you can always ask questions ahead of time. And you can ask questions in the chat. Please add the word question to start. I'm by myself and I'm just going down the line here and I need that question so it catches my eye. Eyes aren't that great anymore, but I really want to answer your questions. I'm going to start with the pre-submitted questions. Well, actually, I'm going to start with a small presentation. I've had this question over the years. I've done sessions on how scales work and used the major scale as a model. But I've also had people ask, well, what about the minor scale? How does that work? And I've decided to do a fairly short presentation on the minor scale. Now, I'm not going to go as deep as I went in the major scale because I'm hoping that you've either seen that or you can go find the presentation I did on that. But I'm going to show you how the minor scale works and kind of show you how it relates to the major scale. To do that, I'm going to go to my blackboard in the background there. Watch this. I figured out how to get a camera on the blackboard. Yes! So now it just needs me. There we go. These rungs are a little rough on the feet. There, I put my shoes on. Okay, hopefully you can see me good. Got my blackboard here. Of course, I wrote ahead of time because it's really hard to write while I'm talking. We're going to start with scale in A. Now, that's because I'm using the A minor scale because there's no sharps and flats. So we'll start there. I've taken all the notes from A through A. So a scale is really just a combination of notes, usually in order, one letter per note. In other words, you're not going to have two A's, you're not going to have two B's, two C's. It always starts and ends on the same letter. So this is the A minor scale. Now, the important point I want to make about this scale, well, to start with, this is a small thing. You can also number the notes in a scale. In this case, A would be 1, B would be 2, C would be 3. These are called, what are they called? We number them just so sometimes you can refer to the position in the scale as opposed to the actual letter, because that way I can say the third degree in the scale, 3 being C. So C in the A minor scale is the third degree. But if I use a different scale, let's say an E scale, the third degree would be E, F, G, G sharp, or G rather. So third degree, we call those degrees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The final A is the 8, just so we can name each of the positions in the scale. But what I want to focus on today is the actual distances between the scale. And we call, or I should say, distances between notes. And we call distances between notes intervals in music. The interval between the first note and the second note is a whole step. On the guitar, a whole step is the equivalent of 2 frets. So if I had this note here and I go 2 frets, that was a whole step from F in this case to G. In this case, A to B is a whole step. This is a formula for making a minor scale. Whole step, half step, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. So that's my little letters under the notes. Distance between A to B, whole step. B to C, half step, that's 1 fret. C to D, whole step. D to E, whole step. E to F is a half step. Now, let me remind you, hopefully it's reminding you, that there is the B to C and E to F rule, which says that all notes have a whole step between them except B to C and E to F. I wrote that down here just as a reminder. And if you look on the piano, it's very obvious. You can see between the keys B to C on the piano, there's no black key in between. And the same with E to F. There's no black key. That's because it's only a half step. All the other notes have a whole step. So whole step, half B to C, whole, half E to F, whole F to G, and whole G back to A. And of course, we're going in a cycle. The musical alphabet goes to G and then starts over A. This is the notes in an A minor scale. No sharps, no flats. It naturally falls correct in terms of the distances. 8 notes. Now, that formula, whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, half, whole, is a formula. And if you start with any note and you follow the distance, you're going to come out with a minor scale, no matter what note you start on. If I start on C sharp and I follow the distance, I'll have a C sharp minor scale. Now the trick is knowing what notes to make those distances. So we're going to test that out. I'm going to show you how to do that with a B minor scale. So I've taken the notes. I should erase the sharps. I was playing with this earlier. Pretend there's no sharps there for a minute. B to B. We're going to make that into a minor scale. First thing we need to do is get a whole step between B and C. And that's why I put the sharp there, because normally B to C is a half step. And to make this a minor scale, it's going to have to be a whole step. So by making C sharp, that adds another half step, makes it one whole step. So now we've got B to C sharp, a whole step. C sharp to D, now that's a half step. It wouldn't have been if it was C, but C sharp to D is a half step. Then from D to E, that's naturally a whole step. E to F, that's a half step. So I put that black sharp there, F sharp. That makes E to F sharp one whole step. Now we need another half step. F sharp to G, that's a half step. G to A, there's your whole step. And finally, A to B is another whole step. Now we have a B minor scale by adding those 2 sharps. Another way to say that is in the key of B minor, there's 2 sharps, C sharp and F sharp. But we're focusing on the intervals today, the formula of whole, half, whole, half, whole. Now, if you were to look at the guitar, basically, I'm going to go on one string so you can see it very clearly. I'm going to start with A, the open A string. We're going to play that A minor scale. A, the next note, it's a B, but I'm going to focus on the distances. A to 2 frets, open 1 fret, 2 frets, a whole step. B, half step, whole, half, whole, and whole. And we're going to end up back on A. A, the octave A from 8 notes higher, A. Let's do it again so you can hear it. Minor scale, listen. One more time. Whole, half, whole, half, whole, and whole. Now for the B, this is a B note right here. Let's do the same thing. Up the entire string. You're going to start with the B note. We need a whole step. Half, whole, half, whole, and whole. That's the octave B. It ends on B. I'll do it again. Now, just to finish this up, with the guitar, I'm not normally going to play my scales all the way up one string. It's just not convenient. I'm going to do something like this for, let's say, an open scale in A minor, meaning using all the open strings. Start with A. I just played the same notes that I did on the open string, but play them across the neck because that's easier for the fingers, obviously, easier to move around. Now, but you can see why I did it on the one string first. It's not that easy to see the intervals when you cross strings. They're there, but it's not as, you can't demonstrate them as easily. And with the B minor, I'd use what we call a movable scale. That means no open strings. And And those are the same notes I played going up the string, just across. The nice thing about this pattern, what we call a movable scale, is I can move the whole thing up, any note, and make a minor scale. So I'm going to do that same pattern on C. I'll do it on D. See, I don't even need to know what notes to play. Just remember that pattern and move it up. That's it. E right there. That was the E minor scale. Okay, that's my presentation. If you have any questions about that, please put them in the chat. Start with the word question if you could, please. And I'll go and look and see what other questions we got. Ha! How do you like that? Took me a while to figure out the different camera angles, but it looks like it's working, huh? Let me know if it's not, please, in the comments. Let me take a quick look, see if there's any questions about the scales, because I kind of like to keep that together if we could. Computers. Okay. Well, I don't see anything about the scale specifically, so let me go on to the pre-submitted questions and start there, and then I'll go on to answer the questions here on the live chat. The first question is, any advice, this is from Bruce, any advice for someone who's having trouble getting the third and fourth fingers on the left hand to work together. Instead, the pinky wants to do its own thing. So this is a common problem, especially in the early stages of playing guitar. I mean, the pinky is not only the weakest one, but the least coordinated, usually because we just don't use it as much. Here's the exercise. I'm going to show you a couple things, and this is for everybody. First, I really recommend warming up every time you practice, and preferably practice most every day, at least a little bit. And when you warm up, that's a good place to do exercises that'll do things like help your pinky get coordinated. This could be a warm-up exercise. It's not the warm-up exercise, but it makes a good one. I'm starting on the 5th fret of the 6th string, so I'll play it first and I'll explain a little more. Watch, I'm not moving any of my fingers till it's time to change. Okay, that was one half the exercise. The full exercise is you do the same thing going backwards. So what I'm doing is playing 4 notes in a row, start with, then I move one finger over at a time, and this really forces my fingers to work independently. As see, my pinky is still stuck there until it's time to move over. I call it the spider, and actually I got that name from somebody else. Apparently, a lot of people use this exercise and call it the spider. So I didn't make it up, and I didn't make up the name either. If this exercise, I think, is a great warm-up, but when you're a brand new beginner, this might be too difficult. What I would do is start with, if you're a brand new beginner, I just start with the open strings, start with the 3rd finger, and then work up to where you use the pinky. Get to the pinky after you can use your 3rd finger independently. And then practice this. This is a good place on the way to doing the spider. In other words, take all your fingers off so that you can go all the way up and back down. When I say up, I'm talking from low string to high string and down from high string to low string. To be clear, not physically. The next step there, which a lot of people have been playing, can do it this way. Just play the spider without picking. First of all, it simplifies. You don't have to concentrate on picking, but you're not going to worry about how good the sound is yet. Just get the fingers moving. See what I'm doing? I'm just moving my fingers as if I'm playing the notes, but I'm not plucking. I can actually hear them slightly because I'm hammering on, but you don't have to do that. Don't worry about that. Yeah, don't worry about hammering on. That will add unnecessary complication. Okay, do that until you can do that, say 80% of the feeling like you got that. Then add the pick as the next point. I would probably just go one way to start with and then add the pick and then maybe go back the other way. Practice this way first. See what I'm doing is I'm leaving my fingers down and moving one at a time as I go backwards. And then add the pick and same thing, kind of same process. It's a great exercise, and I highly recommend it. Again, use your judgment. Are you ready for this, or is the easier one the better place to start? I recommend, not creating too much frustration or anxiety if it's, it's a big leap if you're just starting out. Okay, good question, Bruce. This is Larry now. Larry is asking about the palm mute. He says, do I mute all the strings? Palm mute. First, let me show you what the palm mute is. Let me G chord. What I'm doing is I'm striking down the strings and plucking them at the same time so they mute. So it's good for strums like this. Or like this. Oh, but oh, but That's an exaggerated. I use that often as an exercise for the palm mute. But most often I use it for strums where it just hits once in a while. So Larry is having a hard time striking the strings and actually muting all the strings. So the technique involves placing your palm, this part, like a karate chop, just above the bridge, above this way, so that it actually covers all the strings. And then you turn your wrist down so the pick strikes the strings. And that's how you start practicing it. Listen to all the strings. They are all muted. Now, if you just mute the low strings and not the high, they kind of ring a little bit. That's not wrong. That's a different sound. And it may be a good tool. I don't know if I use that too much. I haven't thought about it. But it's probably a good idea to practice muting all the strings. And the trick is to just practice separately, just muting all the strings. It's not a matter of a trick. It's a matter of practicing it so that your hand does that without having to think about it. If you think about it, you can't do the whole strum. You just got to keep practicing it. And that, again, I would just do it a little bit each day and work on it. And then release. That's the next step. And speed it up, little by little. This is not one session. This is over a period of sessions. You need to use an open chord in your left hand or no chord. If you use a bar chord, you can, if I use a bar chord, I'll naturally bar with my left hand, and that won't work. Then you're not practicing the mute strum, the palm mute. Another name for that is right hand mute. There is a left hand mute. It's used mostly with bar chords, and that's where you release the fingers in the left hand and it mutes out the strings. Two different mutes. Okay, Larry, work on getting the whole karate chop on the strings. That's all there is to it. And it might be a matter of turning your hand a little bit more to the side as opposed to flat down like this. But a lot of it is going to have to just be practicing a little at a time and getting used to it. Try not to stress it. There are other things you can work on at the same time. It's not the only thing. But little by little, you'll get to the point where you kind of will adjust your hand so that it mutes all the strings. Good. Palm mute. Dejan. I hope I said your name right. D-E-J-A-N. Dejan. And please let me know a phonetic spelling in the comments or on an email. I'd love to get your name correct. Dejan asks, I have a well-developed gut. Getting there, but not yet. I was wondering if that is, I was wondering basically what's the preferred way to hold the guitar if I'm kind of big. And I am still searching for a position that suits me. I play electric guitar, and I lean towards a classical position. I lean towards a classical, and I think he's talking like this. This is what I consider the classical position, where the guitar is between my legs, and a foot is propped up on a stool, and I do have a stool underneath me right now. But it makes it hard for me to pick. It picks too far from the bridge. I guess it picks up in here somewhere. So I won't pretend to have the information on this, but I would guess a couple of tips I could offer, and I would love to hear other people's comments, especially if you have experience with this. I think probably there's no absolute right position. I did it, by the way, when I saw this question. I looked it up on some forums, and I kind of got a lot of different opinions, but no one consensus. People are saying it really helps if they use a strap, and the strap allows them to kind of up the guitar in the right position, and it'll stay there. In general, when you're practicing, I find it mostly helpful with an acoustic guitar to use a strap because it just puts it in a certain place, and you get used to it. I don't so much care exactly where my guitar is, only that it stays there so my hand gets used to that place and it's not moving around on me when I stand or when I sit. It stays in one place. Classical guitar is a little different. I have a sitting position that works with the classical guitar, nylon string guitar. What else could I say? I don't know about the classical position, honestly. I wouldn't go there with an acoustic guitar because of the strumming, exactly. But I wouldn't discourage you from experimenting with it either. I would say try putting a strap on and finding a place that you can get it, that if you leave it there, you can practice and get used to it. And again, I think probably the key here is to getting it into a place the best you can that's comfortable for you personally, and then make it stay there so you get used to it. Basically, your hands, your strumming and everything you do is just going to adjust. It's going to get used to that position. And as long as your guitar's not moving around little by little, you should be making progress to finding a comfortable place. Don't expect it to all of a sudden just be magic. One little move and it's all done. That's never happened to me anyway. I found that even the perfect position that I was taught in my classical guitar wasn't comfortable at first, and I had to get used to it. When I did, I saw the benefit of it. Okay, one more pre-submitted question. John's asking, would you demonstrate a basic blues strum that I could use for old school blues? He says, I'm trying to play a Howling Wolf song, Built for Comfort. The chords are easy, but I can't get the rhythm right. So I got this question ahead of time, and I looked up Howling Wolf song. Let me show you what I found. This is the song he's talking about, so I think this will help what I'm going to say. That's B flat, the key of B flat. B flat. So that's why I have to use bar chords to play with the YouTube video. Okay. A typical 12-bar blues, standard 12-bar blues. And in this case in B flat, so I had to use some bar chords. But, if I were playing it on my own, I'd probably... if I'm using electric guitar, I would use bar chords. But if I was using acoustic, I'd probably just lower the key or raise it up and find a place for my voice and make it open chords if I possibly could. So the thing about this type of blues, this is kind of a fast blues, and with the other name for it is a fast shuffle. It's this, the feel is dun 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 dun. It's faster. Dun 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 dun. So there's no one right strum. And you want to get that feel. Now, you're playing guitar and you're playing with a song, or you're trying to play a song that's played by a whole band. This applies to lots of popular songs. The guitar in that band is not playing the rhythm. He's playing a lot of fills and some little things like this. You can't copy the guitar in the band. It's not going to work because you're playing a solo version. So like many songs, you can't actually listen for the guitar and try and copy what they're doing. What you need to do is find a groove that fits on one guitar. And this is going to be some version of a simple shuffle. Here's the simplest version of that. Da, 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 da. I'm doing it a little slower so you can see the motion. And it's not da, da, da. That's not a shuffle. That's even. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, kind of like triplet, triplet. That's how some people say that. If you're not familiar with that feel, I would just try and get the feel, maybe play a song and try to tap with. Da, 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 da. In this case, it's going to be fast. Da, 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 da. See, and it's not even. It's not da, 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 da. It's da, 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 da. So if I add some chords to that, the simplest version, I'm going to go. So let me do that with the song right quick and just show you. Oh, we need some volume here. I hope you guys can hear this. Here we go. So that's the basic feeling of the song. Okay, stop. Now, I would probably add to that, but depending, I don't know how far along you are with strumming. I would add a little mute to that to kind of give it a little more push. So instead of just da 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 constantly, same feel, but now I'm adding a mute. Da 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 da. And that little mute gives it kind of a little push, huh? Makes it a little more rhythmical. In this case, I'm doing the mute with my left hand. This is a left hand mute. I'm raising the bar chord slightly. You could do it with a palm mute. Let me try it. Yeah, you could do it with a palm mute if you're using open chords. You can't really, with open chords, you can't do a left hand mute because when you mute the strings, the open chords are still ringing, so it doesn't have the same effect. Bar chords, you can do that. You just release the tension on your left hand and it mutes it. So I would probably start there. Just for one guitar player, that's probably a good rhythm. And probably what I would do is to enhance it a little bit when I got to that final progression. When it goes to the final chord in the turnaround, the 12-bar blues pattern, I'd go. Now I'm adding a little subtleties to it. Okay, hope that helps. Even if it wasn't for this song, I think just knowing that when you're listening to a song, you're trying to find a feel that replaces the feel of the band with acoustic guitar. I get this a lot, you know, but what strum is the guitar player doing in that band? Well, if you do what he's doing, it won't sound like the song. You got to take into account the drums, the bass, and in this one, there's keyboards also. Okay, so that's it for pre-submitted questions. Let's go on to new questions in the chat. Let's see, questions. I'm looking down the line for questions. Question: what is your thought on practicing with a drum machine? Also, when do you start introducing a drum machine for practice when beginning? I think if you have a drum machine or drum software on a computer, I think it's a great thing to practice on. Think of it like using a metronome. I would suggest starting with simpler beats, because if you add, I know when I'm playing a song and if I add a really complex beat, I get a little distracted and I'm not ready yet. I can't quite play the chord changes in time and I can't keep the rhythm. So start with a simple beat and you can always kind of up the ante by using a little more complex beats, and start slow rhythm till you get it, and then you can pick up the rhythm to where you want to go. I would say you could use a drum machine from the beginning. Just keep in mind that it is going to be harder to do some exercises with a drum machine than without. I would do, if you're practicing simple chord changes or exercises, start without the drum machine, kind of get it, and then incorporate the drum machine in that same exercise in kind of a pattern. Not necessarily one day. Again, I think in terms of, I practice this exercise, I get the fingering, it takes me a week. Now I'm going to pick up the speed a little bit. And next week I've got it quite a bit faster. Now I'm going to add a metronome, and now I got to slow down a little and keep up with the metronome or the drum machine. I, by the way, often use software on my computer. I've got tons of drum beats, and it's a heck of fun. I think the neat thing about drum machines is it adds a little life to your practice. Guitar players are notorious for speeding up and slowing down because a lot of guitar players practice by themselves all the time. With a drum machine, that's going to help you with your rhythm. And I think that's one of the big benefits. It also makes it a little more fun, I think. Start slow. Don't try to make too big a leaps to where you get frustrated and throw the whole thing out and don't even try it again. Good question. Okay, Rogelio. And let's see what we got next. Dan's asking, best way to learn basic intermediary fingerstyle of any song? Ooh, so that's a pretty general question. How could I answer that? I'd say I don't know your level, Dan. I'll assume, let's start with that you're kind of early stages. I would say, first of all, practice the basic pattern for the song. Find the pattern, listen to the pattern, and come up with a finger-picking pattern that works for the song, and just practice that until you can get smooth very slowly before you try to integrate it into the song. In other words, all the chord changes and keep up to rhythm. Start very slow, get the basic right-hand fingering right with maybe one chord, and then add more. Here's the thing, and I think this is important, especially for fingerstyle guitar. No song that you hear, let me say it another way. There's no finger-picking pattern that's going to be perfect for a song that you hear that's played by any type of group of musicians, even if it's two guitar players. You have to find a finger-picking pattern that fits for one guitar that would otherwise, the rhythm would be divided up among different instruments, same as I just talked about with that blues song. So a lot of people say, what's the finger-picking guitar player doing on this song? Well, that's not the point, because if you do exactly what he's doing, it's not going to sound right. I'll take Cat Stevens, for example. I've played a lot of Cat Stevens songs, finger-picking. He has two guitars, and it doesn't sound the same as one guitar. You have to find a finger-picking pattern that kind of captures the feeling. So there's not one answer. There's not, you're going to listen to a song and say, what's that finger-picking pattern? Oh, here's it is. I could say, here's an interpretation that could work for this song, but there's not one absolute finger-picking pattern or style. That said, if you're wanting to play fingerstyle songs, the good way to approach that is to just develop a repertoire of finger-picking patterns. Start, a handful, preferably in 4/4 time, and also a few in 3/4 time. So when you come to a song that has 3 beats per measure, 1. So it's different. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And here's 4 beats per measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then with that repertoire, you can kind of hear a song on YouTube or a recording somewhere, and then try to match it up with a pattern that sounds close or about right. If you have a repertoire, you can do that. If you're just trying to learn a finger-picking pattern to go with that song, you don't even know if it's the right one. You're kind of dead in the water. Okay, that's all I can think to say about that, Dan. A little bit at a disadvantage. I don't know your level. I don't know the kinds of songs you're learning. What you call intermediate, I don't know exactly what that means. Does that mean you can do all the Travis pickings? Or does that mean that you can do this without faltering? Or you can play fingerstyle guitar? I would probably call that intermediate. You might call that advanced. I couldn't say. Let me go on. Oh, I should have got a glass of water, huh? Okay, let me go a little farther. I do have some coffee. Let me see if that works. Creamy coffee. It's more cream than coffee. Yeah, I think so. Maybe. Question. How to train ear for finding chords perfectly? Please give some super tip to develop confidence in ear training. This is Shivansh. It's Shivansh. I think ear training is very important. Probably of course, this is a big subject, and I do with my students, I do a lot of what we call by-copy. I'll play simple melodies to start with, and then have them copy me in just, 2 or 3 note phrases, and then I keep upping it to more complex rhythms and more phrases. That trains your ears to hear the notes, which in turn will help you hear chords and will help you hear chord progressions. Let's just deal with the question as it is. He's asking how to find chords perfectly. The first thing I would do is learn some common chord progressions and practice them in different keys. Because then what you're going to do is match them up with a song and see if they're using that chord progression. In other words, it's very difficult to just hear a chord and hear the notes in the chord and just play the chord. But to hear a progression, for me, is much, much, much simpler. I hear the chord changes. Then I can find what key it's in. I usually start with the bass note and I find the key it's in. Now I know it's in key of A and I hear this chord progression. And then I'll play a basic, that's a 1, 4, 5 common chord progression. If you don't know what that is, feel free to ask. I can talk more about it. But basically, chord progressions, common chord progressions, we often label them with numbers. 1, 6, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 5, that kind of thing. That would give you the most bang for your buck. Practice your guitar using common chord progressions, starting with very simple ones and then more complex ones, preferably ones that are used most often because you're going to get the most bang for your buck. You're going to get the most benefit for the time you spend on it. The other thing is to just listen to songs, preferably start with easier songs, and try to pick out the chords, knowing it's going to be hard and it's going to be frustrating. I did that for years on albums. You remember vinyls? I'd start over and move the needle back, and it was really hard, but it really did help me with my ear training tremendously. That combined with the kind of buy copy and other ear training. I did go to college and they did basic ear training. Like they'll say, what are these two notes? Do, do. And you have to figure out the interval and then what's the scale? Do, 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 do. And you have to listen to it and name the type of scale. And, you know, it's all those things. Train your ear to focus and to really hear what the notes are. It took me a long time, but little by little I could hear the scales and determine if it's a major, minor scale, a melodic minor scale, those kinds of things. Larry, thanks. You're very welcome, Larry. Again, if you're watching this pre-recorded, feel free to add any of your questions in the comments. I will get to them. It usually takes me a few days, but I'd be happy to answer them. Is it normal, this is a question, is it normal for the pinky to curve inwards? Yuri, I can't pronounce the name. Let me just stick with the question. I don't want to kill it. Curve inwards. Maybe if you could ask that again or add something, I don't really understand what it means to curve inwards. I mean, I'm thinking my pinky, is that, I'm sorry, maybe give me some more information. I'll do my best. Ronald, will you go back and briefly cover the intervals in the major scale? Okay, I can do that. Major scale, so I'm going to start with C. Major scale. Whole, whole, half, 1 fret, whole, 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 and half. I ended on C. So now I'll take that to A. We played A minor. Here's A major. Whole, that's an A note. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 and half. Let's do A minor. Let's compare them quickly. A minor. Whole, half now. Whole, whole, half, step, whole, and whole. Hopefully that helps. I spend a lot of time listening to major and minor, major and minor. There's other scales, but I start there, and I found that tremendously helpful. Then as I went on to different types of scales, like a melodic minor, harmonic minor, you've got all the modes, the Mixolydian, that's a common one for improvisation. I can compare them to what the major and minor sound like, but I've gotten the most use out of the major and minor scales. And I get a comment here that using a footstool in classical position makes it easier for the guitar to stay in place. Yes, that makes sense. I use the footstool with my nylon string guitar. Okay, so Shivash is also asking, my other doubt is about chords like major, minor seventh, sus, diminished, etc. They don't fall in any progression as much. So I don't know your question, Shivansh. If you could turn that into a question, I get that you don't know that, but I'm not sure what to answer there. Um, I would say that all those chords are important, but I would definitely start with major and minor chords because they are used more often. Next would come major seventh, minor sevenths. Those are the next ones that are going to be used most often. It does depend on the type of music you're listening to, but diminished, augmented, those kinds of things, a little bit less, or a lot less actually. I would save those for later or maybe indefinitely, depending. If you're listening to just basic folk and rock, I wouldn't worry about that. And Selvin asks, I need to purchase a good guitar. Yes, go for it! How do I select a good acoustic guitar? Well, that's a good question. So let me give you a couple tips that I think I can help, but I'm sure there's a lot that both I don't know and things I'm going to forget. If I were looking for a guitar, by the way, depending on your level, a good guitar is very different. Often students come to my school and they start with guitars that are in the area of a couple $100s. But many students come in and they'll have guitars that they bought on eBay for 69 bucks. Often that price of guitar doesn't work too well. And my concern is, even though we'll start lessons and get going, is that sometimes the students get discouraged because the guitar doesn't sound good and they're practicing and they think it's them and they quit. Well, that's a sad thing to happen. So I usually encourage, if somebody's going to start, think about spending at least a couple $100s for a guitar. And that would be a good starting type guitar, 200 to 300 in that area. Maybe 150 if you found a really good deal. Or if you found a used one that was in great shape, maybe even get less. But that's tricky because if you're not a guitar player, you don't always know what to look for in great shape, the action, the integrity of the neck, those kinds of things, how good the machine heads are. How there's several things that a guitar player or a guitar repairman would know to look for and would be able to assess. Now, as you progress, a good guitar goes up. A good student guitar, okay, I was in college and I had a guitar that cost me, a couple $100, $300, that kind of thing. And my teacher basically said to me, you need a better guitar. You're really going to do this, you've been playing a while, you're not a brand new beginner, and you want to, get your degree in classical guitar, you better get a guitar that's going to do you right. And he recommended a guitar that was around 600 bucks at the time. That was a long time ago, probably going to be 800, 900 now, right? That was 40 years ago, maybe more. I might be a little out of touch there. So now you're talking acoustic guitar. It's not that, if you're buying a brand name acoustic guitar, the brand names are the usual, Yamaha, Fender, Martin, Taylor, though they don't have too much in that price range. They're usually higher. Yamaha is a good brand for that price range. They're just fairly consistent. But you'll find with brand names, Washburn's another one. I kind of forget because I'm not in that market. They're not that much different, quite honestly. Siegel, they have to compete. You can't have a Yamaha guitar that's twice as good as somebody else's brand of guitar. It's not going to work. I mean, Yamaha would either have to raise the price or other people would have to improve the quality because they're not going to be able to compete. So natural competition in the market makes it so that they're not much different. When you're looking for a guitar if you're ready for a guitar that's better than that, and the thing to do, by the way, is to, if you can play the guitar and see how it feels, don't get too hung up on that. I found many a guitar that wasn't comfortable at first that I got used to and played great, electric guitars especially. I thought the Fender Strat was a very awkward guitar. I was used more to that Les Paul, which you hit a note and it sustains more, and the Fender it was really hard. But I found over time, I ended up liking the Strat much better because I could make more subtle sounds than I could on the Les Paul type guitar. But with acoustic guitars, you're going to find that some feel better in your lap. I personally find a slightly smaller body works better for me. And I have the big body, so I can compare them. that's something you won't know unless you try it out. But don't get too hung up on it. That's not the only deciding factor. And then, you might want to look online and see different reviews. But I'll tell you, there's not really the great guitar and the bad guitar in that kind of price range if you're talking about major brands, major popular brands of guitars. Now, when you get beyond that, there's all kinds of other issues that are going to be partly personal preference. You really do have to do your homework. There's not going to be one or two tips. Again, if you can play the guitar and have somebody else play it and see what it sounds like, that might be a good indicator. Just it's not the only information. When push comes to shove, I actually play guitars. Most of them are in the thousands of dollars. My good guitar costs $7,500. And, when you get to that place, I wouldn't know how to tell you to buy that guitar because I had to try many, many guitars until I heard the sound that I wanted. I never thought I'd spend that much money, but that guitar had the sound I've been looking for recording for years and years. And I just said, I've got to bite the bullet and spend the money if I'm going to get the sound that I want. Ultimately, that's what decides is if you get the sound that you want, you can get used to physical stuff just by practicing and sometimes practicing for quite a while. Okay, that's all I know about that for now. Any more questions? The Yamaha FG800, solid wood top, awesome sound, around 200. That would probably be, for a beginner, it'd be one of my first choices. And thank you for mentioning that. The FG800 is kind of a standard, good for your money, good value for your money. Not a great guitar. It's not going to compete with, $2,000 guitar. I think this is like a $1,400 guitar in terms of sound, but really good guitar for $200. Thanks for your advice. Okay, it looks like all the questions I got for now. Matthew says he uses a guitar strap. So I'm going to go ahead and do the drawing for this month. If you have any additional questions while I'm doing the drawing, feel free to add them. I'll look and see if I can catch any last questions. You're welcome, Selvin. You're very welcome. Of course, again, let me mention these are the people who are in my Real Guitar Success membership. And each month I give a series of 20 lessons. It's 5 per week, basically, and of different topics. And I rotate in different subjects. And they complete each lesson. And that just means they spend at least 10 minutes on the lesson. They can save it and practice more on it later if they want. Then at the end of the month, I look and see who's completed all 20 lessons, and I put them in a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card. So let's see who gets the $50 Amazon gift card this month. And we've got Paul. Congratulations, Paul. You are a winner, and everybody who completed the 20 lessons is a winner because ultimately being a little better at guitar is worth more than the $50 gift card, but it's nice to have both. So keep that aside so I remember to send it to him. Let me check for last minute questions. Merci beaucoup. You're very welcome. And I don't see any. So I think we're going to close up for today. Thank you all so much for being here with me today. It's been fun. I believe next month my co-host will be back, but I might invite somebody else as well. In any case, I'll be back the first Thursday of the following month. I'm here the first Thursday of every month. My time, 12 noon. I'm in California, but of course, your time is going to be different depending on what state or country you're in. Please come join me. And if you think of a question ahead of time, give me a question ahead of time. You'll find a link somewhere in this. I'll put a link that can get you to my email list that you can send me questions ahead of time. I'd love to. I'll do a little research if I need to and do a thorough job. In any case, take care. Hope to see you again next month, first Thursday of the month. Bye.